Okay, all right, great.
Perfectly clear.
So we are going to talk about first, who are these immigration agencies and what do they look like, right? Because one problem is that ICE, which stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, it'd be really nice and convenient if they wore clothing that said, hello, I am ICE, right? Then we would know who they were. But they don't do that. They often try to trick people by either being undercover or wearing vests that say police on them. A lot of times they'll say police, the HSI, okay? And then sometimes you'll see, and this is confusing, Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. Now you might be thinking, what does that have to do with us? We're in Brooklyn, why would CBP be here? Customs and Border Patrol was initially set up to manage just the borders. But legally, they can be within what's called the 100-mile zone. The 100-mile zone, as it turns out, is basically 1 in 4 Americans live within the 100-mile zone of the border, including all of New York City. So if you see a CBP, if you see a vest that says Customs and Border Patrol, you know, you're not delusional. It's real. That's Customs and Border Patrol, and they're acting within the city. Okay. So keep in mind, they might wear vests that say police, ICE, they might say HSI, they might say CBP. They probably won't look like just a police officer. I think we all know when they're not undercover what an NYPD officer's uniform tends to look like. They're not gonna look like that. They're gonna usually have some kind of vest, or sometimes they are in plain clothes, which they shouldn't be doing, but sometimes they are, okay? If you see an immigration enforcement officer, and we're going to walk through a couple scenarios, but let's first assume, well, let me start by saying, everybody has rights, okay? We all have rights, and don't listen to people that say that when you're talking to people about their rights, that you're doing anything you shouldn't be doing, because these are constitutionally protected rights, okay? They lie in the 4th and 5th Amendment. They protect you from unreasonable searches and seizures by law enforcement. And then we all know the 5th Amendment, right? You plead the 5th. I don't want to talk. I don't want to help out your case on your behalf. The 5th Amendment is also what protects you from having to interact with law enforcement, or with immigration law enforcement officers who don't actually have any right to be talking to you. So you have rights, and the point of this presentation is to talk about your rights, right? Okay, so let's start with, if you see someone interacting with an ICE agent on the street, what should you do? So we're gonna go back to, what was that, a week ago when ICE was here, a little over a week. You see ICE on the street. In this case, I think it said, Chris, what did it say on his vest? Did it say police ICE?
One of them did, yes.
One of the vests said police ICE. Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So if you see something like that going on, and you're just a civilian monitoring it, okay? The number one thing that you should know is that you have a right to record that interaction. You have an absolute right to record that interaction, okay? So no matter what that ICE agent says to you, as long as you are not interfering with their attempt to detain a person or to question them, you can record. And they might, by the way, they're known to do this. They'll put their face up and say, no, 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 no. You know, as long as you're keeping a safe distance and you're recording them and you're not interfering, you have the right to record. When you are recording, there's a couple things to keep in mind. It's going to be tempting, especially if it's somebody that you know or somebody that you recognize from the neighborhood that's getting detained or questioned. You're going to want to put the camera on them. That's not where we need the camera. Where we need the camera is on the officer, right? Why is this important? Because depending on what that officer does, if the person who's being detained tries to is in court and says, I was illegally detained, I was questioned against my rights, if you have the video recording that says, you know, this person said, I don't consent to a search, and they went and consented to a search without a warrant, which we'll talk about, that person's case might get dismissed in court. And you just did that by getting that evidence. All right, are you with me so far? Okay. So you can record as long as you don't interfere, right? And you keep your camera on the officer. Try to stay quiet when you're recording. It's going to be tempting to, you're going to see stuff that's going to probably upset you. It's going to be tempting to yell or to scream or to talk. You don't want to do that. And nothing you say to the ICE agents is going to help. Why? Because let's say it's Chris that's getting detained, and I walk past and I take out my phone and I start to record, right? If I go, Chris, all of a sudden ICE knows that that's Chris, right? And that's evidence that they can use to say, yeah, that's who I thought he was, right? But if you stay quiet and you just record, then that's fine. So you don't want to say the person's name. You don't want to give any information unwillingly to ICE, okay? When you have that recording, the next thing to do is take that home after the interaction, whatever may happen. We hope the person's safe, but if they're not, you take that home, you save a copy of it onto another device, right? A computer, a flash drive, something, right? That's right. And you save that. Do not make edits to it, because the original form is evidence that's admissible in court. If you go in and you make edits and you add, you add text or you cut it up, now that's not admissible in court, okay? So save the original, don't make any changes to it. Now, and this part is a little tough for some folks to understand. We see that interaction go on and our instinct is gonna be to wanna tell the world that this is happening in our neighborhood, right? Sometimes that's not particularly helpful, and there's two reasons why. One, if there's some question as to whether it was ICE, if we don't know for sure that it was ICE, we don't want to share that out, because there are immigrant communities that are already living in fear every day. We don't want to drive them inside and say ICE is in Coney Island if ICE wasn't in Coney Island today. You know what I mean? Yeah. The other thing is that a lawyer or an advocacy group who's representing that person that got detained or is getting questioned, they might want to release that at a specific time or not release it or wait to show that evidence in court, right? So what you want to do is you want to keep that video. You want to see it. Does it say ICE on the vest? Does it, if you get those signs that it's ICE, and you know what a great thing is to do is to call our office or any other elected official's office and say, I think I saw an ICE interaction today. I'm going to send you the video. I'm going to send you photos. We will reach out to our advocacy groups and our connections and see if that was actually ICE and try to determine what happened. And then we can share out the information if we think that's going to be helpful to people, okay? You can share it with friends if you think that's, trusted networks, but you really don't want to blast it to the world until we know exactly what's going on, okay? Any questions so far about recording the incident? Yeah.
I remember Janelle said that he told him to put the phone away. He had to buy the phone.
Yeah. They can't tell you to do that. I mean, so you mean ICE, you were trying to record and ICE told you no?
Yes, that's what, there's a girl right here, he was in the bus and when this thing happened, he said, put the phone away.
So.
Where is she, Sister? Janelle.
She don't wanna talk. She's here.
Okay. So that's okay, and this is sensitive, right? So that's fine. What you don't want to do is if you're the person being questioned or detained by ICE, you don't want to open up your phone. Because, and we're going to talk about searches and seizures in a second, but if your phone is open, that's not locked, they don't need a warrant to look in your phone. So if you're the one being detained or questioned by ICE, you don't want to have your phone open. But if you're the person recording, they can't tell you to put away your phone and they can't take it. Yeah.
No, I was just wondering, when recording, how far do you recommend that we should, stay from?
Yeah, I mean, as long.
You don't want to get too close because next thing they could grab your phone or whatever.
That's exactly right. And you don't want to give them the excuse to say, oh, this person was interfering. You don't want that.
Right.
So like the distance I am from Chris right now, I think is fine. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay. That's okay. You can be. But again, you can be that close as long as you are quiet,
Right.
right? As long as you're not physically getting riled up, you gotta stay calm, and you can be like this, and you just keep the camera on the officer. That's within rights.
One caveat, if you're African American, be a little taller.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. And if you yourself are worried about your immigration status,
That's what.
I don't want you anywhere. I don't want you anywhere near there. Honestly, I don't. I really don't. I should clarify that. If you want to record, you know, this is under the assumption that ICE is not going to be targeting you, right?
What if they ask you to open your phone? Should you comply?
No.
If you're the one being searched?
No. So let's talk about searches. So under the Fourth Amendment, and this is very important, if you take one thing away from this training today, I want it to be this. ICE needs a warrant signed by a judge.
Yes.
A judge, okay? To search any of your personal property, your home,
Yes.
and since we're in a beautiful church and in places of business too, private places within churches and businesses that aren't open to the public,
Yes.
okay? I'm gonna say it like 3 times. You're gonna be like, Kayla, that's enough. A warrant signed by a judge. This is great. This is perfect. And so to your question, if you're not already, your phone should be locked with a 4 or 6 code passcode. Listen carefully. Not a fingerprint recognition and not a facial recognition. Because the passcode is protected by the Fourth Amendment. But the facial recognition technology and the fingerprint technology is not. So if you have your phone and it's locked,
Okay.
they technically, if they don't have a warrant, could say, let me see your phone, and a judge would probably find that if it wasn't locked, they have the right to look into your
What if
phone.
you have both? What if you have fingertip and you also have?
As long as your phone well, no. So if basically what I'm telling you is get rid of the facial technology and get rid of the fingerprint. Because if that's gonna open up your phone, that's all that they need.
So that signed document that you're referring to,
Yes.
does it normally come with a seal from that particular court? Because they can always forge a signature. And if you don't know what a court document
Yeah.
signed by a judge looks like,
Yeah.
they can always, assume, right, they
Yeah.
can always tell you that this is it.
Oh, and they love that. They love to make official looking documents that have
Right.
fancy badges and whatever.
Looks like a good thing.
Oh,
That's what
yeah.
I'm saying, so that's what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah.
If it
They will
normally comes with a
show-
seal,
They will show a document that's got something that looks like legal language. Often what they produce, by the way, is something called an administrative warrant. And the administrative warrant, this is fun, is usually signed by an ICE agent themselves. So down by the signature line, you'll see a line and you'll see a signature and then you'll see a print block and it'll say, so-and-so ICE enforcement or ICE agent. That is not sufficient. That will not do, okay? So all I can tell you is I can try to show you some examples after this of like what's real and what's not. Typically, ICE does not forge a judge's signature because that is like,
Yeah.
Forgery.
that's beyond. They would get in serious trouble of doing that. Everybody would lose their jobs, there'd be lawsuits forever. So typically they will not forge a judge's signature. So what you wanna look for is a signature line that has a signature and then it says, a person's name and judge. It shouldn't say ICE judge, it shouldn't say HSI judge, it should say like a magistrate judge or a judge from a particular court, okay? Yeah.
if you are the one being questioned, searched, whatever it is, can you request a copy of that document that they're presenting as a warrant to say that, this is the document? And to
Absolutely,
present in court?
absolutely.
Can you do that?
Yeah, so, and going, I'm gonna answer that too, but going back to the recording thing, one of the things that you wanna try to do when you're recording is the moment when an ICE agent, if they're asked to show a warrant, try if you can to get a photo of that warrant, okay? Or whatever paper they try to put up, okay? But to your point, and I want to be clear that the rules about what they can do are different based on whether you're out on the street or whether you're in your home. So they can come up and talk to you on the street. That's fine. You don't have to answer them, which is what we're going to get into next. But if they start to ask you to look into your bag, or if they ask you to unlock your phone or something like that, that is the point when you're asking for the warrant. They don't need a warrant, unfortunately, if you're in a public place, like streets, sidewalks, public library, like public institutions. They don't need a warrant to enter or to talk to you. Not that you need to answer, which we'll get to, but they do need a warrant signed by a judge to look through your private property. All right, we're clear on that difference?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about not talking. All right?
Wait, before you go down.
Yeah.
Do the warrant has to have specifications in it?
Well, so yes. The warrant needs to apply to the place that they are at or the person that they are talking to, right? So if they show you a warrant, if they're trying to enter your home, which, you're gonna answer the door, we're gonna ask for that warrant to be slid under the door jamb or to be held up at the peephole of the door, right?
Yes.
Basically, if they're coming to your house and your house is, 100 Center Street, right? If they show you a warrant that's for 250 Broadway, no, you're not letting them in. Even if it is signed by a judge, by the way. Just, I need a valid warrant signed by a judge to enter my premises, that's not my premises, okay? Or to search the belongings and body of a person that's not you. Not, even if it is signed by a judge, not a valid warrant.
Misspelled names.
So let me ask you with that.
Misspelled, correct?
Misspelled names they don't have.
So on the warrant, it would have someone specifically their name?
It should. Depending on whether they were coming to your home or in the street and what they were trying to do.
I didn't hear the comment that Pastor made, what he said.
If the name is
Misspelled.
Misspelled words. Okay.
Misspelled addresses, misspelled names. Nope.
Mm.
So my name is Chris, if they just happen to put a T at the end and call me Price, that's.
How about we are in the street and you wanna see our bag, so
Right.
we're not gonna let him.
Not without.
Give me this thing.
A
Put this on.
The warrant.
It's inside there.
So let's talk about not talking, all right? Your Fifth Amendment right. We all know about pleading the Fifth.
Yes.
Does not just apply to local law enforcement. It also applies to immigration enforcement,
Yes.
okay? This is the case, I think I'm off, oh, here we go. This is the case, whether you're in the street or at home, okay? If ICE agent comes up to you, the interaction should go something like this. Oh, hi, are you Kayla? And I look, and I say nothing. You're Kayla, I want to talk to you. And I can say something like, I do not wish to speak to you. I wish to remain silent. Okay, but just confirm that you're Kayla. I'm not going to say anything to you. I don't wish to speak to you. And if you're feeling really, like if in the moment you're calm enough, you can say, I exercise my Fifth Amendment right, okay? And again, the minute you say something like that to an officer, in court, they are required by law to tell the judge that you said, I exercise my Fifth Amendment right. And that helps your court case, okay? So I exercise my Fifth Amendment right. I'm not speaking. I wish to stay silent. I don't want to talk to you. Any of these things are completely fine, okay? Then they might say something like, well, let me see your bag, or let me see this, or let me see that. And that's when you ask for a warrant. And if they don't produce a warrant or something like that, then the next question is, am I free to go? Am I free to go? Okay? Because they can't detain you if they don't have the ability to detain you, right? Now, they could if you're not going to exercise your rights. This is why this is so important. But if you exercise your right and say, am I free to go? You can go. If they say yes, right? If they say no, then we have an issue. So that's about not talking. The other thing, of course, which you all probably know, is you can ask for a lawyer even if you do not have one. You just say, I refuse to talk, I want to speak to a lawyer. Especially if you are detained, or if the person you're talking to is detained. I refuse to speak, I wish to speak to a lawyer, I don't want to speak without a lawyer. Yeah.
I went outside earlier on in your presentation, so I don't know if you covered this. Did you say ICE needs to identify itself to you? If I'm approached by an ICE agent, does that individual need to say who is talking to? Are you Chris? And I don't know who's talking to me. Do they need to say who they are?
Do they need to self-identify? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I think they have to, but I don't want to give you wrong
Because if
information, so
someone
I'll
doesn't
follow up with
identify
you.
themselves, I definitely,
Right,
I don't think I have to speak to them. I can literally walk away.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are.
right,
Why you're talking to
Right.
me, so.
Right.
that's what I'm
They have to
saying.
identify themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah.
Does it cover non-citizens? And not just non-citizens, obviously a lot of persons are here who are legal, who are not citizens. Does
Yeah.
it cover persons who are not legal?
that's right. It does,
covers it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, it does.
Awesome.
Yeah, everybody has that right, yeah.
So how about if they ask for your information, your IDs, like that? Because right now,
Okay.
I'm bringing my passport, because I said, because my ID is expired, so
Right.
I bring my American passport, so this is okay?
Yeah, okay. This is a very important question. You as if you are a citizen, you are not required to carry ID on you at all times.
Oh, really?
I was scared. because
You are not
I
as a
don't like-
citizen
Oh,
required to
that's
carry ID with you at all times. If you are a documented non-citizen, by which I mean you have a work visa, you have a green card, technically by law, you're supposed to have that identification on you at all times. They still, if that is in your bag, they cannot ask you to open your bag and grab it. They cannot go looking for it, right? They cannot search your body for it. So like theoretically, you're not getting to that point because you're not talking to them and you're not letting them search your stuff, right? If you are undocumented, the worst thing you could possibly do is show them false identification or lie. And that's why we stay quiet, and that's why we don't consent to searches. And we don't say things like, oh, my identification's at home, or anything like that. We don't do that. We just don't talk, okay? And we don't consent to the search. We don't lie, and we don't show false ID, okay?
Question.
Yeah.
So let's just say you don't talk,
Mhm.
you don't consent, you
Yeah.
don't give anything. Can they take you away with them to wherever, to the office, because they assume you might be undocumented or assume that,
So this is why that warrant is so important. Because, so if you're in a public place and you don't confirm who you are, how are they gonna detain you? So if I say your name in the street, or you say your name is whomever, and you confirm who you are, then maybe, depending on the warrant that they've gotten from the judge, maybe they have the ability to detain you.
no, but if I don't say anything,
It's-
you hear so many things where they say they just come and they arrest you and they put you in their car and they take you away, and these are people probably
that's what we
who
see all the
didn't
time.
say anything, I
Yes.
don't know. Do they have a right to, let's assume I say I'm not, I ain't sure nothing, I just said, do they have a right to physically take you away?
Sometimes they have dotted their I's and crossed their T's, and they have their warrant, and they've built their case, and you're still doing everything right. You're not talking, you're not doing this, and sometimes they will detain you. And they may have followed all the right steps in doing that. I'm not saying that by doing this, you're not going to be detained. I'm saying you can protect yourself and build your best case by staying quiet, by not giving them access to anything, by asking for warrants. You know what I mean? So this is, and I should say that from the beginning, like, these are stressful situations. Nobody, it's easier said than done to do all of these things correctly. But this is just you protecting yourself and building your best case.
So,
Did you have a question?
in a case like, she said you got this, what happens, you let them go, wherever the venue, and then you, that's the time you ask, I want a lawyer. Can you say that after they drive you away?
Of
the
course.
office?
So asking for the lawyer is the most important when you are in ICE custody. Right? That's when it's most important, because now you're in a situation.
Yeah.
Now it's just you and them, and you want to stay as quiet as possible, and the only other thing you want to say is, I'm not speaking without a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay? And even if you don't have a lawyer on hand, on retainer, you don't have the friend to call, that's okay. You're still gonna say, I want to speak to a lawyer. You are constitutionally protected in that you need they must give you the ability to call a lawyer.
So
And if they don't, that case could get thrown out.
So if you don't have a lawyer, would one be provided for you by the state?
So it's tough to say, because it depends on where you're detained and how you're detained. So, but what is for certain is that you must be given the opportunity to call one. So, it works out differently in different facilities, but, sometimes it'll be that you get a phone call, sometimes it's that a lawyer is provided for you, sometimes there will be a list of resources and you can call a nonprofit or an advocacy organization who will connect you, but, yeah. Yes,
Yeah, you said, as a citizen, you shouldn't walk with,
not shouldn't. You're not required by law as a citizen to walk around with identification.
But I think it's wise that everybody should walk with ID. all the
Yeah,
time.
sure, sure,
Some sort of ID,
sure,
citizen or not.
sure. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying the only group that is required by law to walk around with identification is at all times, are documented non-citizens. But I don't disagree. It's a good thing to have the ID on.
Yeah, because there's a stereotype, there's nothing, people looking at this, oh, this guy or that girl's a citizen.
Yeah.
So they can take advantage of that
Yeah.
and detain you anyway, and they will come up with an excuse. This guy looks suspicious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And you know, I mean, I will say, not here, I can't give New York City examples, but I know that at least in the last couple of weeks, they've done kind of like mass raids
Right.
and included people who ended up being citizens
Citizens.
because they were just targeting based on race or.
Yeah, they say that's a stereotype.
Can I ask you a question now? I don't know how many people saw it, but on TikTok, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's true or not because you don't know. The guy says that ICE is giving people $750 reward for to turn in someone
To
who.
turn in other people.
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw that too.
And what he's doing is he's calling up Ubers or Uber Eats, things like that, and have the people come in, give them a glass of water, and then imprison them in his room and call police.
Right.
That's illegal.
So I don't,
That,
I have not
but
heard-
wait, yeah, sorry, because he says on there,
Yeah.
it can't be illegal because they're in this country illegally. So you can't do anything illegal to somebody who's illegal. That's what he says. We know that's crazy
right.
because you cannot imprison people. I don't care what this,
So
but still.
I have not heard of that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I know.
I
should
saw
not
it
be
on
inhumane.
YouTube too.
Yeah.
saw
I
it.
know, I just don't know if it's actually,
Yeah, I saw it.
I don't know, I can't comment on it because I just don't, I didn't see that.
A reward for $700.
No, but that's everything you do in the
I think
regime.
it's okay.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we're clear about, first of all, is anybody, I just want to say, raise your hand, is anybody a small business owner or is in charge of a space that's not their home for whatever reason? Like a community space or anything? Okay, I just wanted to check because if you're a small business owner, there's things you should know too about how you can protect workers and things like that. But it applies at your workplace too. As I've said before, ICE can legally, without a warrant, enter public spaces. And I'll give an example. We can take this space, for instance. I don't know normally up that side door, if it's open to the public, like right now, we're sitting here, if that door is open to the public,
It is.
the door that we entered from the street, an ICE agent could enter through that door without a warrant, and presumably, these two doors here. Now, if you had spaces that were like employees only, or they were locked rooms, or locked closets, or things like that, where the public is not permitted to go, that would require a warrant. So that applies to workplaces too. Just keep in mind that like, just because something's not your home, doesn't mean that it's, it doesn't mean that it's not fair game. But also, a place like this, even though it doesn't feel like it's a library or a park or something like that, could still be open to entry.
Public place.
Yeah, unless we're talking about corners or areas of the building that are not open to the public, and those places would.
Okay, like you said, private business always open like that, but every Thursday we give food here. And long line and outside, and I'm always there, but I don't let them come in. I put the table right there, and I have people come help me, people from the neighborhood come help me to give them the food.
Okay.
What's going on if I spend while we give them the food?
Well, first of all, if they're out on, you mean to the people that are waiting in line, or
Yes.
they can be there, ICE can be there. But then we would go back to our rule about not talking, and about requiring warrants to search, right? And not giving up any information, but they can be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Especially the line up. on the
So say
sidewalk.
for instance, you work in a restaurant,
Mhm.
right? I finds out you work in a restaurant, they come into the restaurant, you're whatever, working in there. Now, that person who they want to detain or whatever can run to the bathroom, and they cannot go into the bathroom.
Which
Yes.
bathroom?
If it's a public bathroom.
Employees
they can-
only.
Oh, if it's a public oh, it has to be like an employees only bathroom?
Because,
Correct.
Oh, so that's good to know.
And the kitchen, for instance.
Or-
Kitchen is not open to the public.
That's right.
It's not locked or anything like that, but it's not open to the public, right?
Okay.
Staff restroom is off bounds. That's right. But a public restroom, we're gonna go, speaking of spaces, let's go back to the home for a second. We talked about not letting ICE agents in without a warrant or asking for a warrant, right? And we talked about how you'll ask them to hold that up to the peephole or slide it underneath.
Yes,
And that's because we are not going to open the door,
right.
right? We're not opening the door. Until we see that warrant and we know that warrant's real. And even then, warrant comes under the door, we're taking a photo of that warrant, right? We're remembering everything that if we're like, this warrant, I don't know what to say, this warrant looks good, it's signed by a judge, it's my name, it's my address, it's, you're still not opening the door, right? You're taking a photo of everything, you're preparing. Most likely, you're not consenting to entry, right? You're not consenting to entry, and ICE will use force. However, if, let's say your child was running out in the hallway or something like that and left the door open, ICE is gonna use that as an excuse that your door was open and and it was open in public, and therefore, now whether that will hold up in court, I don't know. But if the door is open, they're gonna come in. If you heard a knock on the door and you don't have a peephole, or you couldn't hear and you open the door because you're like, I don't know who it is, I can't hear anything. If you open the door, they're coming in. Okay?
So just
Even if it's a chain,
Even if they have no
you
warrant,
peek out?
Even if they, what do you mean? What's the question?
if they have no warrant, they just knock on your door and you open it, can they just have it without a warrant?
Well, no, but they will. But they will.
Oh, they will.
Because you opening the door, they're gonna argue in court is consenting to entry.
you open the door.
Tricky. And by the way, they use all kinds of lies and tricks. So sometimes they'll show up and they'll say, well, we want to talk to Chris. It's not you we want to talk to. We want to talk to Chris because we heard somebody stole his identity, or we found his credit card on the street, or we heard he witnessed a crime or something, or like, they'll come up with something that sounds innocuous.
So we need to practice conversing before we open our doors. Who are
That's right.
you? How can I help you?
How can I help you? Who are you?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yes.
And
just like the case when that man came up to a woman down on Montclair Street and claimed that he was ICE.
but he was or he wasn't?
But he was he was an imposter, so he got arrested. For raping a woman.
We have enough ICE agents, we don't need to be in go with
He was not really an ICE agent, he was just a.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we don't need to be acting as ICE agents, we have enough.
We got real ones.
Right, exactly.
I could impersonate a law enforcer.
Well, and so that's it, right? So as the pastor just said, the first thing to do is you hear the knock on the door, whether you have a peephole or whether you have an intercom or something, you're asking who it is, and they're gonna tell you some story, and if it sounds wrong, if this doesn't sound right, honestly, even if you're undocumented right now,
Right, don't
open the door. If somebody knows you, they're gonna call you, they're gonna text you, you're gonna hear their voice, if you don't know who it is.
I'm not even asking who is it.
But if it starts to sound like they're gonna enter, you have to ask for that warrant. Ask for that warrant.
Request it.
Is there a
Can they
plan?
break your door down even if they have a warrant? If they have a warrant, rather?
So if they have a warrant and you're still not consenting to entry, they can break the door down. And the difference is that in court, they're gonna say, well, you know,
Got the wrong door.
you had the warrant, so they could do that. If they didn't have the warrant and they do that, they're gonna be in trouble, but you have to exercise your rights and say, I do not consent to you entering my home. I do not consent to you searching my thing. Let me put it this way, even once they're inside, right? So now they're in. Whether they have a warrant, whether they don't, when they're inside, you should say, I want you to leave,
Yes.
and I do not consent to you searching my things. Because that's even a different level. Okay, they're inside. Just say you don't consent to the search. And again, maybe in this case, they dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's, and maybe they do have everything together. But a lot of times they don't, so you're just building your best case for court. That's all you're doing. So that the ICE agent can hear you say, I don't consent to a search, I don't want you in my home, I'm asking you to leave. If they hear you say all those things in court and then a judge asks them, or if they hear you say all those things and then in court a judge asks them, well, did the person consent to a search? Did the person consent for you to enter their home? Did they tell you that they do not? Then that changes the case.
You know, it sounds good, but sometimes it's your word against theirs, because you might be saying, I told them no, and they saying, yes, you did, no, you didn't. Who's to believe?
Listen, none of these things are
Attorney.
foolproof, right? We're not,
Yeah.
I'm not standing here telling you this is going to solve the immigration crackdown, this is going to, these are just your rights, and you're doing everything that you can to protect your case. And by the way, a lot of times, they do not have a warrant.
Yeah.
That's why the single most important thing is the warrant signed by a judge, because often ICE does not have warrants. Why? Because it's hard to get a warrant. You have to build a whole case. You have to say, I know this person, I know exactly who they are, I know exactly where they live, I know exactly what their status is, here's proof of when they entered, here's proof that they didn't leave. Like, it's hard to get that warrant from the judge. So they don't want to go through it, so that's why they that's why they do that administrative paper. So you're betting on the fact that maybe they didn't do their work. Yeah.
Kayla, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that, but I know now there's an aggressive push from the federal government from the president's office now on trying to push immigration. He wants the numbers to come up. He's not happy with where the numbers are at. So he's making a big move with ICE and he's having them go out. I'm trying to think about what's going to be the strategy now with advocacy groups that will be working for immigrants. Do you know if there's a plan to try to curtail them as far as their aggressiveness in coming after immigrants in the future?
Yeah. So I can't speak to what's happening on the federal level because that's not really where I work, but I can say that on the city level, what the legislators are trying to do is to strengthen. So first of all, we have sanctuary city laws, right? The laws about not entering private places and things like that, that's because New York City passed those laws, right? Well, actually, no, those are Fourth and Fifth Amendment protections. The New York City sanctuary laws are the things that, like, NYPD cannot, cooperate with ICE by sharing immigrants, right? Those are sanctuary city laws. Those are things that protect us, especially in New York City. The legislature is trying to find ways to strengthen those laws more, to protect places like churches and schools and things like that. But it's tough. You're balancing federal, the ability of the feds to do what's within, their authority to do versus
Local.
constitutionally protected rights and what we have the authority to do on a local level. I will say, the New York Immigration Coalition, if you haven't heard of them, is a great organization. It's where a lot of the materials that I have are from. They're great. They do advocacy work. They have resources and materials, and they can connect you to other great organizations. It's a good time to be involved with groups like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yes, like, when they enter your home, let's say with the warrant, and you say that I don't want you to search anything, like you tell them that. Of course, they're not gonna listen to you. So is it okay if you, before you open the door, you put your stuff to tape what's going on? They don't have to know they're taping, but at least it will be that you're telling them, I don't want you to enter, I don't want you searching my stuff.
You mean to record?
Yeah, to report.
You can record.
When they come into the home, because if when we go in front of the judge and the judge say, did you ask them, then it's their word against. But if you have a tape, they may not know you're taping it.
You can
But
absolutely
it's
record.
okay.
Again, everybody has the right to record. The problem is that if you don't want to be the one holding an open phone,
No, you don't. You
because
can
then they
the-
have access to your phone.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's like if,
You can hide because you already know the company.
so if you have like a Ring camera, if you have an indoor camera or something, and that's recording, there's no problem with that. There's no problem with that. You just don't want your phone to be open in front of an agent who can then go into your phone and find out all your personal information.
Up close and close to the action.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If they're after another member of the family and you're inside the home, I suppose you, who they're not after, can do the recording.
That's right.
Okay. I would also like to piggyback to something you had said earlier on. You said your strategy in public is to call out your name.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Because it's natural for people to react to their names and answer to their names. And so I suspect they know that is a good strategy. If you have already answered, it's confirmation that it is you, right? So the next step would be to remain silent, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Always.
And you did say they use chicanery. Is it okay for an ICE agent to dress like a police officer, see that they're into church? And
So,
knock on your door like a police officer?
They are not, they are, it has been very, very rare
Yes.
that they take on the garb of a New York City police officer. That, I don't know if I have heard of an instance of it. They often won't, they will just try to look generic,
Okay.
more than they will try to look exactly like a police officer, okay?
So if they have a warrant for your home, for you specifically,
Uh-huh.
and there are other occupants in your home, can they search them or investigate them as well?
I mean, so they can, if the warrant is for you and your home, they,
Can they make a sweep?
right, so first of all, like, let's be clear. If this is a judicial warrant signed by a judge that gives them the right to search the premises, then they can search the premises. Under no circumstances should anybody be talking to them,
Okay.
right? Like, even if they have a signed warrant by a judge, you're still not talking. Nobody's talking. Nobody's talking. Right?
So they're not only permitted to take just you if they find that you're illegal, but if there are other illegal personnel in the home, they can detain them as well.
I don't know.
I
I don't know. I don't, it would depend on I think it would depend on the interaction and what they learned from the interaction. But it is, we're so far down it's so rare for them to have the warrant, successfully enter the real warrant, successfully enter the home, successfully search, and even get one person and have that all hold up in court, let alone other people as well. I'm pretty sure everybody has to be named on the warrant. I don't think you can say, okay, I have a warrant for this person, and so but I will follow up
Okay.
with you on that.
Warrants don't usually have pictures, just names.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Any other questions? What we didn't talk about today, because it's long, is what happens when someone's detained and in court. I can only tell you that there is a website, that's called, it's called ICE Locator. And within a day from someone being detained, you should be able to find out where that person is. If you take my card, I can follow up with you and let you know what that website is. And if you're the family member or the friend of a person who's been detained, obviously, there's a few priorities, right? If you have a recording, you want to save that. If you didn't record it, but you saw things, you want to write down everything you remember. You want to locate the person as soon as possible, and you want to make sure the person has access to an attorney. ICE is required to tell you within a certain amount of time where that person's being held. I think they're also required to tell you whether they are represented by an attorney. So these are things that's the immediate stuff you want to work on. Okay?
Good.
Where are they? Did they get to talk to a lawyer? Okay. That's kind of everything I planned on sharing with you. Does anybody still have questions? Yes, Pastor.
I understand that if they come to your home.
Yeah.
And they're looking for someone else, you don't, even if you know where the person is, you don't have to tell them. That's what I learned, but you should not lie, which means how do I approach it? I just simply say.
You're not talking.
Got it. All right, let me move on. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation, good information. We really appreciate it. Let's move on to the church aspect. What are the laws now regarding ICE and the church, entering the church? Can they enter the church? How should we react as a pastor? I'm inside here in my church and they come in. What interaction should I be having with them? They disrupt our worship because the doors are open and it's a public space. How should I approach this?
Yeah. So, there was for lack of a better word, there was a understanding for the last, I don't know how many years.
Yes.
The federal government was saying, look, it was not a written in stone law or anything, but the federal government was basically saying, we are not going to go into highly sensitive places.
Yes.
Because we want those places to remain safe for people and whatever, and one of them was churches. That is no longer the case.
Yes.
So a church is, for lack of a better word, like a church is fair game.
Yes.
Which is why it's important to know the difference between a public and a private space within a public space.
Okay.
So everything we talked about earlier, about where they theoretically could enter, but where they could not.
So like the pastor's office would be a private area?
If the public is not regularly invited into the pastor's office, then that is a private space. Like if I couldn't, from off the street, walk into the pastor's office,
Or the clerk's office.
or the clerk's
treasurer's,
office, if it's employees only or only by invitation or something like that, then that's not a public space.
Some signs.
So we're gonna put some, that's all I'm gonna say. Y'all make some signs.
Clerk only.
They do have signs there.
They're pastors only. Not just the name.
And again, and what do we say, like when we're in those scenarios and we know they're private spaces, we're saying,
Nothing.
we don't consent to entry, we don't consent to entry, this is a private space, we don't consent to entry, right? That's it. Yeah.
When they retain someone, detain, okay.
Retain the lawyer.
When we retain a lawyer,
Oh, we've lost her, she's gone now.
No, that's-
She's gone now, we're gonna be.
now she'll never get it. You don't get it out now. All right, Sister Mahia. You know she'll laugh the rest of the half hour.
That's fine.
Oh, she's giving me joy. We need some joy.
That's what it
We need
is.
some.
Yeah, we got a lot.
As you were saying, Mahir, Sister Mahir,
Once you retire.
That was a good laugh. Watching her laugh at herself.
I know, right? It's contagious. When we detain.
Why they detain someone, like how long they will hold on to them before they actually let them go, whether they send them back or what they do.
So they can't, in the interest of, and this is not always the case, but generally what we've seen is that, it's not like our terrible criminal justice system where you can be languishing away for however long without a trial. Like ICE usually moves pretty quickly. Because the goal is to deport. Right. So I think they're required to start proceedings within a certain number of days after being detained. I'm not sure. But this isn't, they're going to start deportation proceedings pretty soon after detaining a person.
But how would they know what country the person is from?
That's a good
A lot of
question,
people
though.
like to fake
That's a
accent.
good question.
Right.
They will act like they talk Jamaican. They can act,
Yeah.
so some people
Well, again-
fake their language.
Right. Here's
oh, they'll detain until they figure that out.
Here's why we exercise our rights, right? Because they should only really be doing that. Not that I agree with any of this, but if they actually had the right to do all that, then
Criminal.
they should already have all that information because they
Right.
collected it before going to the judge to get the warrant, right?
Right.
Unless we didn't exercise our rights and we started talking and saying, I know I'm from Jamaica or I'm from wherever and I
Yeah.
came here this, then, and that, like, we don't want
Yeah.
that,
I'm
right?
going back next year.
So, and by that time, a person should have a lawyer, it's lawyers to lawyers, they're gonna figure everything, they're gonna try their best to figure everything out, right? So, but to your question, I mean, they should only be bringing cases that they really have all that information lined up. The trouble is when we don't exercise our rights and they're bringing people in because we're not objecting or exercising our rights and,
Can I ask you a question with,
Yeah.
dreamers? Are they still dreamers or are they considered illegal immigrants now?
So I'm not gonna, this is one of those areas where since I'm not an immigration attorney, I'm not gonna talk about status, just because I don't wanna give any false information to anybody. So I talk to an immigration attorney for that, yeah? Or I can follow up and connect you with somebody, but I don't wanna misstate.
So the 14th Amendment is what? That they're discussing immigration law?
Well, for the purposes of know your rights, the 5th and the 4th, because we're talking about you are constitutionally protected from incriminating yourself or searches and seizures. Know your rights, that's what you need to know,
But you've been born here as a citizen, it's not gonna be part of the immigration conversation.
No, all residents of the United States have constitutionally protected rights, whether you're a citizen or not.
Right.
Yeah,
That's why they take advantage of people who don't know about that.
right,
They
exactly.
take advantage of it.
Right, because they're living in fear and feeling vulnerable at that moment and not knowing,
Yes, but I want to know that, the people that they pick up who work and have money and have possession, do they get to go with it?
Get deported?
Oh,
You
do
mean
they?
if they get deported?
Yeah. What's gonna happen
good
to those
question.
people's
If
houses?
they have any
They
right
can't
to
take the
it,
job.
they have any right to it. Maybe to ask somebody who, like a friend or another family member to maybe sell
My
it or
understanding is
whatever.
once you're detained and once you're in custody, it's you.
Okay.
It's you and what's on you.
So the government take your assets.
So if.
I honestly don't think you have a right to reclaim
Okay,
anything.
okay.
If you are buying a home,
You're in, you're in.
not legal, you must have somebody else's name on it. Somebody else's.
Yeah, your name would not
You're
be.
not gonna benefit, yeah.
Your name would be.
Yeah, your name would be on it.
That's tough.
Anything else? I know it's a lot, and I know it's heavy, but it's good. We need to know these things, right?
Amen.
Knowledge is power, we need to make sure we're not doing their work for them, right?
Right.
Don't make it easy.
So I'm gonna give everybody my card,
Yeah,
and Chris will do it too, and then I have a few handouts, if you wanna take them, I'll leave them for you, whoever wants it, I don't know if everybody wants it. If you want to follow up with me, or if you need access to other resources, we can talk, or, you know, you can email me or call me.
Yeah,
Right,
great.
and you know our office, Councilmember Brannan's office is right
Coney
around the
Island.
corner. 1915,
Yep, right here.
right, on Mermaid.
Yep, we're very aware.
So you can stop in there and talk to any of those, sometimes Chris is there too, so you can talk to any of those folks too, but you can ask them to connect with me too, if you wanna talk to them. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, thank you
No,
for having me.
thank you.
It's
Thank
been-
Omari. Well, we want to thank our informers and our visitors here for taking the time out to come. I know that's the job to do that though.
Yeah.
But we want to thank you for doing that, right? And thank you all for staying back and listening. And I hope you were informed. If you have more questions, write them down, remember, and you have the call, you can call. Call if they, leave a message or whatever you have to do, because it's, we need to know these things. We don't want to be just left out in the dust, not knowing what we need to do. Okay, so it is snowing, and we're gonna ask everyone to stand. And we are going to ask Brother Albert, how about we ask the pastor? Sorry,
Please, he's
Albert.
here.
We have the pastor here.
I was
Sorry.
coming to take Brother Albert's position.
Amen, amen.
I just wanted to officially say thank you
Thank you.
to both of you. This is our sanctuary, our place of worship. It's important to us, and it's important that our people be educated. So we appreciate the time that you've taken off to come and just answer some questions for us. I may say some stuff, I'm not a lawyer. It's good to hear from someone who sits in a certain position. So we really appreciate your time, the effort. Brother Francis, you were asked to pray.
All right, Albert.
Kind Father, we just want to thank you very much. We thank you for all the information that we received from Sister Kayla. And we pray, oh God, Father, help us to help God and direct us. We don't know what the future holds, but we know that He knows it. And nothing does not exist without you. So continue to protect your people. We appreciate the information. We appreciate everything that has been transpired here today. Give us traveling mercies, I ask. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
9:15.
Brother Chris. You got you locked in yet? Cut this off. Debbie. Brother Patrick. Debbie, before you cut that off.
Oh, yes. So, this is just kind of like a general.
You said we had to, we could